Welcome back, folks. My name's Shane. In today's video, I'm going to share with you a 100% free tutorial for the new Panasonic LUMIX S1 II. Now, this is a really powerful full-frame mirrorless camera, which I've already reviewed on the channel. If you want a straight-up review video, I'll link that one up in the cards and you can watch it before or after this video. This will be a tutorial about the menu system, how to turn features on and off, and where they're located. The menu system on this camera is pretty deep, and I'm going to cover the things that I think will be of the most value for you. If you can, leave a thumbs up, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell, drop a comment, and if you have a question about a specific feature and where it is, if I missed something, then drop a comment down there and I'll reply to you as soon as I can. Just a quick disclaimer as well, I was recently invited over to Austin to test out this camera, but just to let you know, I don't get to keep it, it goes back to Panasonic, along with the S1 II-E, which I might do a follow-up video on. Both of these cameras are so similar when it comes to the menu system. If you're just watching this and I never posted a S1 II-E video, the menu system navigation will be almost identical. So you can kind of consider this a menu system guide for both cameras. Odds are this video will be quite long, so I'll leave some chapters down in the description so you can skip ahead back or forth if you just want to turn on a particular feature, or if you can't find how to format your media cards. Let's get into it. Let's kick things off here with a camera body overview, because quite a bit has changed since the S5 II or the S5 II-X, which is right here. So while they do look pretty similar, the new LUMIX S1 II is slightly larger and just that little bit heavier, but some of the weight disadvantages are also positives when it comes to the overall design of this camera, and we'll get into that. So as you can see, looking at the front here, we have a custom function button up here where we can map whatever you like through the camera's menu system. We'll talk about that later. We've got our body cap removal button here, so you just push this in, turn it anti-clockwise or counterclockwise if you live overseas, and then you can click it back in just by turning it back to clockwise. Over here, we have our front red record button. There's also a nice record button on the top here. So if you want to start recording, you can use either the shutter, the front red record button, or of course this button on this side. The top section of this camera is where it drastically varies from the S5 II and X. So we've got a new command dial over here, which is set up quite a bit different. You can see that there's no dedicated movie mode over here. So we'll get to that in a minute. But if you want to change between P, A, S, and M, which is program, aperture, shutter, and manual mode, you can do so. And then we get 5 dedicated custom modes that we can use from this top dial alone, which I really love. We also have our intelligent auto mode. This dial can be locked by pushing this button right here. It's got a nice amount of tension. I've never really felt the need to lock this because it just stays in place, which is awesome. Our photo, video, and S&Q mode are all located on the left-hand side. There's a little lever on the front that you can then switch between each modes. Again, this has a high amount of tension, which is awesome, so you're not going to accidentally knock this into the wrong mode. One of the great things about how this camera operates is, being that we get 5 custom modes, for example, we can switch to video and get 5 custom modes saved. We can then switch back to photo and get 5 photo modes saved, and there's plenty of other options you can store in the menu. So it really opens up a lot of opportunities. If you want to store a few favorite S&Q modes as well on the dial, you can do that as well. The photo mode dial is over here. We've got our single shot, mechanical shutter, electronic shutter, handheld high resolution mode, timer, and time-lapse mode over on the far right. While the mechanical shutter will give you great results, if you want to get access to the 70 frames per second that this camera is capable of, you need to have it set to electronic shutter. Like the right command dial, you can lock this just by pushing the button in. To release it, just push it again. The back of the camera body is pretty much the same as other cameras that we've seen from LUMIX, with a small addition over here. So we now have a lock lever on this side, which allows you to lock your settings, especially on the screen. So you're not going to accidentally knock them out of place if the screen gets touched. So that's really cool. Our playback button for going through our photos and video is on this side. We have our 3-lever focus mode switch over here. So single shot, which is basically sending the autofocus to one point and then locking. Then we have our continuous autofocus, and then we've got our manual focus option. If you're in video mode, just leave it in C. S doesn't really do anything differently, but if you're shooting photos, single shot is great for product shots, whereas continuous will be good if you plan on shooting a moving subject. Now, one of the cool things about this camera is if you are using manual focus, you can hit the AF on button over here and it will punch autofocus into a spot and then lock. It's a really handy thing to have, and I'm using it throughout the entirety of this video using my GH7. Our Q button on the back helps us get into the quick menu system. We have our menu set button in the middle, which gets us into the main menu, Our display button will cycle through the different modes on the LCD screen, and we have our return and delete key. So if we're in playback mode looking at our photos, we want to delete one, we can hit this button, a prompt will come up on screen, hit the menu set button, and you'll be able to delete that piece of media. This D-pad gives us 4 options as well. We've got up, down, left, and right, as well as a circular option here, which helps you navigate the menu, navigates through your photos, all that kind of stuff, and I'll show you more about that in just a moment. On the back of the camera here, we've got our 8-way joystick, and this can be used for a whole bunch of different things, including menu navigation, setting your autofocus point, or selecting things thanks to the push button functionality as well. We get 2 tally lamps. There's one on the back over here and one on the front, which allows you to see exactly when you're rolling. This is really handy if you're a solo content creator or someone who's filming someone else and you just want to make sure you and the talent know that the camera is actually recording. Now we get this top dial over here, which is in a slightly different position to the S5 Mark II and X, so it's slightly more recessed, meaning you're not going to probably knock this as easily. Right next to the shutter here, we have our front wheel as well, and this has a nice amount of tension on it as well. It's still easy enough to turn, but again, if you glance it with your finger, you're not going to accidentally move it. We get 3 buttons on the top here: white balance, ISO, and exposure compensation. To access the media card bays, all you need to do is push down here and pull out with your thumb like this, and then all of a sudden you can see that we've got 2 media cards. Now, the first type is this. This is a CF Express Type B card. And I'm going to put this in with the label facing myself. So if I'm behind the camera, you just pop it in like this, and then you push it in. And to release, you push it in again, and it will pop out. This camera has mixed media card bays, so you can also use a card like this. This is the Extreme Pro from SanDisk. It's a V90 card. To pop this in, label side out as well, which is the same for the CF Express Type B card. Pop it in, it locks into place, push it again, and it will pop back out. To close the door, all you need to do is close it like this and then push it back in. If you're doing time-lapse photography and you want to use a remote, our remote port is on this side. On this side of the camera, we have all of our audio and video ins and outs. So we've got our microphone input, which can also double as a line in. I'll get to that in the video. We've got a headphone output socket here for listening back in real time or in playback mode. We have a USB-C port over here for charging the battery internally, or of course you can let this run using USB-C power delivery. Down here, we've got our HDMI output. Now this setup is different to the S5 Mark II and X, but it's actually better because it allows you to get more flexibility with this awesome screen that's on the back, and I'll show you that right now. I've moved the camera back a bit so you can get a full understanding of this fully articulating touchscreen. So the S5 Mark II and X had a screen that could pretty much do this. You could also flip it back that way and then close it back on itself. But this new one allows it to flip up like this, which is awesome. So if you're behind the camera, this is a great way of working. You can also pull it back out like this if you want as well, which is my favorite way to work with this camera. And of course, you've now got all of these other ways you can basically have the screen rotate. So if you're taking photos vertically, you've now got a whole bunch of different ways you can work. Or of course, you can have like a top-down view that's a little bit different to every other option thanks to the Variangle display here. We get a 5.76 million dot electronic viewfinder here, and the diopter for setting focus is on this side. So say, for example, you're wearing glasses and the EVF doesn't quite look right, you can move its focus point back and forth. It's kind of like a focus point anyway. So yeah, if it doesn't look clear, just experiment around with this wheel over on this side. This little LVF button over here allows you to decide if you want the electronic viewfinder on or off all of the time, as well as the screen over here. So you can cycle through the different modes. Now by default, if this sensor under here is covered, then this screen will go off and the electronic viewfinder will kick in. Now, if you do or don't want that, just cycle through the modes using that LVF button. To access the battery compartment on this camera, just flick this switch down and the battery door will pop open. Then to release the battery, just click up on the white tab. The battery will automatically spring out. We get the same BLK22 battery with the new S1 Mark II that we have for the S5 Mark II and X, the GH5, G9 Mark II, and plenty of other cameras. So if you buy this, you'll have identical batteries unless you're coming from a much older camera. If you want to buy the LUMIX battery grip, you can just pop this out, and then these terminals will touch to the opposite side on the battery grip. Just don't lose these rubber things. They're so easy to lose. In the center over here, we have our 1/4 tripod screw mount. And lastly, to turn the camera on and off, we have our on-off lever on this side. With the camera in movie mode on the top left-hand side, to get into the menu, all we need to do is hit the menu set button, and then you're presented with this menu. Now just know the main screen here will look different because I've already customized this camera, and we'll get to some of that in just a moment. But don't worry if yours looks different to this, and you probably won't even see the audio levels. So hit the menu set button, it brings you into this menu. Navigating this menu system, you can use the joystick, you can use the D-pad, you can cycle up and down on the wheel here. There's all of these different ways you can use it. The back wheel also allows you to get through stuff, as does the front wheel. So yeah, there's plenty of different ways of navigating this menu. From the photo style option, we can select which picture profile we like to use. If you're just getting started, try natural. It's a really great one for basically every scenario. Another really popular one that I like is portrait. It looks really nice. It's got sort of semi-saturated colors, nice contrast, all that kind of stuff. If you want a more cinematic look straight out of camera, Cine-like A2 is a really great choice. Probably my favorite picture profile on this camera. Leica Monochrome is a beautiful black and white profile, so I can highly recommend that one as well. And lastly, Leica S1II. A lot of people like to use this. I'm not a huge fan of it. I think it's okay, but if I'm going to shoot with a picture profile that looks like that, I'm going to use Vlog and then grade it in post-production. To select a picture profile that you like, all you need to do is either hit set, or you can just hit the menu set button and you're in business. The next option down is metering mode, and what this allows you to do is essentially meter the scene in a few different ways. So if you're not sure what any of this stuff is, if you're just handling the camera right now, the display button on the back allows you to see what is going on. So this is a quick way of just knowing what the camera is doing on any particular setting. Now from this top option here, it says measure brightness of the whole scene automatically, which is what I would leave it on if I'm shooting outdoors, for example, if I'm on my own. Now, you can also decide to expose for the center of frame, or you can use the spot metering target. So if I click on that, for example, the spot metering target will follow basically this focus area thing. So it allows the camera to expose wherever I put it. If I put it to the center where it's brighter, it's going to pull down the exposure. If I put it over here where it's darker, it's going to bring the exposure up. So this is a really handy way of doing it. Now, if we go back into the exposure modes here, I'll turn display off for a moment and select the first one. It should just basically expose the shot relatively well. And I've never really had a problem with the auto exposure on a lot of Lumix cameras. They just seem to do it right. So yeah, if you're using auto exposure, just by default, it's going to do a pretty solid job. One of the new modes in the camera here is dynamic range boost. So this will give you an extra stop or so of dynamic range by turning this on from 14 to 15 stops. And if you want to use this, it's best to be shooting in the Vlog picture profile. So you cycle through and find that, which is right there, and then you can turn this on. Now this will change your recording modes in the camera. We'll talk more about this in a moment, but see now there's a lot of options that are grayed out. It means that dynamic range boost isn't available in those modes. For this camera, I don't at all have a problem with 14 plus stops. I think it's more than enough, so I can turn that off. And then if I go back into the video modes here, which, oops, I clicked the wrong one, which you can see now that they're all available, which is a much sort of more fluid way of working. So yeah, I would just leave it off unless you absolutely need the most amount of dynamic range. Just know that rolling shutter is increased by turning dynamic range boost on. So if you're a handheld shooter, again, I'd leave it off. The dual native ISO settings are here. I always just leave this set to automatic. I've never once changed this on any Lumix camera. So yeah, unless you really need to set it to high mode by default, then you can do so, but I would just leave it set to auto. ISO sensitivity for video allows you to set the minimum and upper limit of the ISO range. So instead of it being set to auto, say for example, I just want the cleanest images, I would set it to 12,800, which is right at the point where the noise starts to creep in. So this has great low light performance, and you can also change the lower limit as well. So if you're working in a controlled situation where you might only want it to go between 1,600 and 12,800 or whatever the case may be, then you can set it here. Again, I would leave this set to automatic for most users. To turn on shutter angle, you go from option number 1 here to the second option, image quality 2, and then SS gain operation, and we can turn that to angle ISO. If we take a look down here, you can see it's set to 110 degrees right now instead of 180, and that's because I'm currently in aperture priority mode. If I switch the camera to manual, you can see now that I'm set to 180 degrees. iDynamic range here allows the camera to adjust the contrast and exposure. And this allows the camera to give you more perceived dynamic range. And this will go anywhere from off, which is the default, from low standard, high, and automatic. Now, this is a really cool feature, especially if you're in a studio where the lighting might be a little bit more challenging to work with. You can turn this on, but again, it's off by default. But if you're struggling for whatever reason, which I highly doubt with this camera, then you can turn that on and give it a shot. Over to the record file format for video, and we get 3 containers here. So the first one is MOV, we have MP4, and Apple ProRes. I'll show you MOV to start with here because there's so much. I want to make sure the filtering's off. It is. All right. So going from the top to the bottom here, we can shoot 6K open gate, and you can see that it's a 3x2 readout. That's what those 2 little numbers are, and the amount of pixels is located on the left. Now, there's 11 pages of this in the PAL region, and there's 19 pages of this in the NTSC region. So if you're in North America, you get way more options than in the PAL region because they got 24, 30, and 60 frames, whereas the PAL region have 25 and 50. There's everything in here, man. If you can't find something you like in here, I'll be surprised. Now, if you want to shoot 4K at 100 frames per second, you'll find it in this menu right here. You won't find it in the S&Q option, which caps out at 60p. So this is Cinema 4K at 100 frames per second, which is a really great option. But if we go down, you can see that we've got, where is it? 4K at 100 frames per second, 42010-bit. And this needs to be slowed down in post-production, but it's there if you need it. The autofocus still works great. You don't have the tracking modes, but it's still PDAF. You set up a box area, which I'll show you later, and you're not going to have a problem with this at all. So yeah, the image looks great. You do get about a 1.2 times crop or so shooting 4K at 100 or 120p. But it's definitely not a deal breaker. If you want uncropped 50 or 60p, you'll find it in this menu system as well. It looks beautiful. If you're shooting for efficiency, try the MP4 menu. A lot of people won't use it anymore, but it's really cool because we get this 4K 10-bit 420 option right here, which gives you 25, 24, or 30 frames per second if you're shooting in NTSC, or 25 in PAL. There's also a 50p option. The image quality looks great, and it also saves you a bit of space. You can see it's 72 megabytes per second. This one's 100, so yeah, nice and easy to edit. By going into the ProRes option here, this is where you'll find RAW. So if you plan on shooting RAW HQ or RAW without the HQ, these options are available. You can see that this is 2.3 gigabytes per second. This one is 3.5. So basically, this will fill up a terabyte hard drive if you're going out over SSD in under 20 minutes. So just get ready for that. Yeah, it really does chew through the hard drive space. But if you need RAW, that's the workflow, and odds are you're probably already set up for it. And then we've got all of our sort of Apple ProRes codecs and so forth down here as well. Now, one question that will come up is the RAW pixel to pixel readout? It is. It only uses the pixels that it needs for RAW to give you the best image quality. So yeah, it's not sort of oversampled or anything. It's just using what it needs. And it can go all the way down here to full HD 25 frames per second, 422. Now, if you're recording Blackmagic RAW externally, here's the path to turn on HDMI RAW data output to on. The LUMIX S1 Mark II also supports proxy recording as well. You can turn it on and off from this menu, and you can also set the proxy recording quality. And if you don't know what these are, it essentially records a second video file that is much easier to send to someone or to edit if your computer is struggling with the higher sort of resolution files. So you can set it either low, medium, or high from this option. Let's take a look at the autofocus settings. I'm also going to show you a quick way around this, so you don't have to keep going through this menu system to get into the autofocus settings. What you can do is just hit the little button on the back here that looks like a flag, and it brings up this menu. This is much easier to work with. Then from here, we've got all of our different modes. Tracking, full area, we've got zone, AF, there's one area plus, and one area. Now, some of them are grayed out because they're photographic options. But the cool thing with this is it allows you to select a subject. Now, if you're someone who's talking to the camera, or you might be filming someone else, for example, you can go into detection subject here, and then it brings up this list. So under human tracking, we've got human, eye, face, and body, which is by far the most reliable. There's eye and face tracking only, which works okay if your subject is close to the camera. And then we have the new urban sports, which is designed for like skateboarding or dancing or whatever. So if someone's doing something in a non-conventional sense, you can try the urban sports mode. It works great in video mode, but not so great when it comes to photography. Oh, I shouldn't say it doesn't work great. It's a bit hit and miss. It works fine sometimes, and then it works not so great in other times. Now, if you say you want to do some animal videography, you've got these two options to choose from: animal body and animal eye body. Car tracking is the same. It sort of gives you the car entire subject. It will detect it and bring up a yellow box. Or you can go over to car main part priority. So it will basically detect different areas of the car. It's the same here for motorcycle tracking. We've got motorcycle, bike, entire subject, so it sort of prioritizes the list here. And same with the helmet here. So you've got motorcycle, bike, or helmet priority. Helmet priority means it's going to look for the rider, which is pretty cool. Again, if you're not sure, just stick to this first one. It still does a really great job. We've got train tracking, which has two different modes, much like we've explained already, and also airplane mode. Let's say, for example, you want to quickly turn off human tracking. There's a way of doing that as well. So if we go back to this autofocus mode menu, say we want to shoot with a one area plus mode box, all you need to do is push up on the D-pad and it will remove the human tracking, and push it again, it will bring it back. So it's a nice fast way of getting into different autofocus modes. From the AF custom settings option here, you can change the speed and sensitivity values of the autofocus system. Now by default, it's set to 0, which is fine. But if you want a more cinematic pull, then you can turn this down, or if you want it to respond faster, you can turn it up. So for sports and action, all that kind of thing, I would set this to +3. The AF sensitivity changes the way the autofocus responds. So if you want it more locked onto your subject, you actually have this at -2. If you want it to be less locked on and more responsive, you can have it set to +2. Autofocus Limiter was a really handy tool in the contrast DFD days, but it's not something I would use so much anymore. But it allows you to set up an autofocus point, so it only pulls focus between two different options. So say, for example, I want to focus only on the background. I would have it set to maybe here and set the white balance to limit 1. And then I would set it to here and then set the ISO button to limit 2. Then when I hit set, it's only going to pull focus from those 2 points that I set and not actually pull focus to the foreground. So this can come in still really handy in certain shooting scenarios, but yeah, the autofocus is so good now that I don't actually feel the need to use this. Focus peaking options are found here, and this helps with both autofocus and manual focus, and I'll explain why. So if we go down to set, you can change the sensitivity. I'll put it to +2 so you can see what's going on. You can change the color. I previously had it set to green, but I really like this color here as well. And if we go down to AFS, it means if you're using a single shot autofocus, and I'll show you that right now, like a half shutter press, it's going to show you that what's in focus and what it's actually looking at here. So focus peaking is a really handy tool. Now you can also go down to set and display during manual focus, and I have this set to on. So if I switch the camera to manual focus, you can see that the focus peaking is on. As I bring it to the foreground, I don't know if you can see that on the camera recording the screen here, but essentially it allows me to see exactly what's in focus by looking at the color I chose from the menu system. From this menu, we can turn on our record level display. By default, this is off, so you can set it up for 2 different sizes. Large is like this right here. If I go back in and go to set and change this to small, you can see that it's now much smaller. If you're working behind the camera, this might be the better choice, but if you're someone who's a content creator, you want to make sure that you're not clipping or anything like that, you do a similar thing to what I do, I would set this up to large. It's much easier to see if you're working on your own. If you want to mute the sound entirely, you can turn that on from here, but I would just leave that off. From the sound record gain level option here, you can change the onboard 3.5mm audio socket input gain from standard to low if you need a little bit more headroom, but you still have full flexibility over the onboard preamp. Now, for most wireless systems, I found the sweet spot somewhere between -12 and -16, and this goes for Rode, Saramonic, and all the other brands I've showcased on the channel. It seems to be about the sweet spot with the gain level set to standard, but you can experiment around with that and find what works best for you. I always leave the sound record limiter on. It just helps if there's any sort of clipping, and this works especially well if you're using the onboard microphones. Now, this microphone socket has 3 modes essentially. So the first one is mic with this little power thing, which allows it to work with external microphones that require power, like a shotgun microphone. Then there's just the standard mic input here, and also a line socket. So if you're going out of a desk or a mixer, for example, you can go straight into this, set it to line, and you'll be in business. The headphone volume can be set from this menu, or if you're playing back a file by hitting play, you can also kind of use the D-pad once it's playing to change the level of playback volume. So yeah, it's really intuitive, but if you want to find the full headphone volume option, it's in this menu here. One of the cool things about the LUMIX cameras is you can monitor different channels when it comes to what you're listening to back. So by default, it's set to channel 1 and 2, which are the onboard microphones, unless you've got a 3.5mm audio socket plugged in, and that will then become the default. But you can see all of the different options here. We've got 3 and 4, all of them, channel 1, channel 2, channel 3. channel 4, channel 1 plus channel 2, 3 and 4, and then all of these options down here. If you are using the DMW XLR 1 or 2 adapter, the audio options on the camera will change. Now, this camera has two different zoom options. If you're using the kit lens, for example, you can turn hybrid zoom on and it will allow you to punch in much further just by turning the zoom ring on the camera. Now, I've got a prime lens attached, which is why you're not seeing that menu lit up in the camera. Now, if I go down to crop zoom though, I can turn this on. And this allows me to take this, what is it, an 18mm lens, and I can punch all the way into 24mm here. Now, if I'm shooting in HD, then it allows me to crop in even more, and I'll show you that right now. So let's go up to here. I'll go down to full HD at 50 frames, and then we'll go back into crop zoom. So it's on, and now we can punch all the way into, there it goes, 49mm with an 18mm lens. So yeah, this is a digital crop, but it works nice and smooth. It's kind of similar to clear image zoom for the Sony system. So if you're familiar with that, you'll get a kick out of crop zoom. And as you can see, it says CRZ or CRZ up on the top screen here on the top. If you're using hybrid zoom with a zoom lens, you'll see the hybrid zoom option pop up on the top menu system here. The image stabilizer on this camera is fantastic, and we get the brand new mode in the E-stabilization option, which I'll show you. But we've either got the operation mode on or off. By default, it's set to this little hand with the two lines, so I would just leave it on, and you can see in the top right-hand side that that's the icon that is currently related to the IBIS being on. Now, if we go into the E-stabilization option, we've got three modes here. So cropless keeps the same field of view, but gives you better corner stabilization, so a little bit less wobbles. The standard mode is my favorite. It crops in a hair, but it gives you unreal stabilization. You just wouldn't need to do anything to this in post-production. And then high you can basically run with, but it gives you quite an aggressive crop. So you can pick the one that works best for your shooting scenario. But again, standard is the mode I'll use anytime I'm doing a vlog or anytime I'm doing any sort of handheld work. It really looks great with minimal crops. Now, one of the ways I love to work with the E-stabilization is by mapping it to this custom function button here, and I'll show you how to do that. All I'm going to do is hold this down for about 1.5 seconds. By holding the button down I just showed you, you can go to function number 2, go over to others video number 1, and turn on E-stabilization. So now if I just tap that button on the front, it's going to bring up the 3 modes and the off mode, and you can get a sense of the different crops. So off and cropless look the same. Standard is slightly more cropped in, but gives you excellent stabilization. And high is almost an APS-C crop. Maybe not quite, but it's cropped in quite a lot more. But this just gives you quick and easy access to this particular feature. Under the same image stabilizer option here, we've got Boost IS. Now, this has been around for a long time, since the GH5, and allows you to get tripod-looking shots when shooting handheld. It's really quite great. This isn't designed for walking shots. It's best used for static shots if you just want it to look like it's on a tripod. Now, I like this feature so much that I map it to this return button on the back of the camera. So all I need to do is hit it, and you'll see the logo on the top right change to Boost IS, which is a hand with a little box around it. And if I hit it again, we're back to just standard active IS. And this works in conjunction with the E-stabilization. So I can have it set to standard and still turn on Boost IS, which gives you just insane levels of in-body image stabilization. This is such a powerful camera for handheld work. If you're a handheld shooter, it's an awesome option. Let's take a look at the slow and quick settings here. Now, I've got the camera in S&Q mode for this as well. Now, I'm going to go into this option and change our frame rate. You can have it at 1 frames per second, which is 25 times quicker than real time when I'm in the PAL region. And then we've got all these options here. Now we've got 30 frames, being that I'm in the PAL region, it's 1.2 times slower, and it will go all the way up to 4K at 60 frames per second. Now you might be saying, hey, where's 4K 120? It's only in the regular recording menu, as I showed you earlier, so you can get into it from there. Now the cool thing with this is, if I want to say change this to HD, we're going to get a whole bunch of extra cool options here. So we were capped at 60 frames before. Now I can go 75, 100, 120 frames per second, which still has autofocus. Then we get into the manual focus modes. 150 frames per second still looks beautiful, as does 180, 200, and 240p at its maximum. Now, as you can see at the bottom here, we get an additional crop at 240p. But again, the image quality is the best slow motion I've seen from a full frame camera shooting 240p. It really looks good in HD, right? So you are in full HD, but it's still a very smooth image. Usually it's over sharpened and it looks pretty terrible. Not on this. It was some of the best slow motion footage I've been able to capture just in terms of how it looks. It looks great on a 4K timeline. The sweet spot, I think, is 150 frames per second is a really premium look, but it's still, again, very usable all the way up. Over to the cogwheel here, we're on the focus shutter page, which is AF on this mode, and then we're going to go into manual focus assist. Now, by default, this is set up differently, and if you like a little box to come up to magnify your frame anytime you're using manual focus, then leave everything set the way that it is. But if you're like me and you don't like that, you need to turn focus ring to off, and then turn this manual assist display to full. And I pull focus, I'm not going to get a little pop-up box on screen, which is how I really like to work. Now, if I turn focus ring on and, oops, not that one, and this one to picture-in-picture, you're going to see this box pop up, which some people love. I'm just not a fan of this particular mode. I find it too distracting when I'm moving and trying to focus. So I generally leave focus ring set to off and this one set to full, and you won't have any problems with that at all. As I mentioned earlier, the Q menu is located here. Now you can fully customize it by going into this Q menu settings, and then you can change whatever you like in different modes. So we've got mode 1 here, which has everything on this side. We've got mode 2, which brings everything up as a list on the top. And I'm so used to working with mode 1 that's what I prefer to leave it in. Now you can fully customize the items in this mode for both photo and video. So if you want to change something here, you can select it and go through the menu and change it. Say, for example, I didn't need the drive mode settings. I could change it to any of these 3 pages of options. Actually, I think there's 10. But yeah, there's plenty of options here. As you can see, there's just lots and lots of stuff. Same for the video mode. You can go in here and change things up. So if you want to adjust, say, or get rid of noise reduction because you don't need it, you can turn it into, let's try something else here. We'll try iDynamic range. So now if we go to the Q menu, there's iDynamic range over here, and we can turn that to low, standard, high, and auto without needing to go through the main menu. If you want to change the lock lever settings over here, you can go in here and tell the camera what you want locked or unlocked just by changing these lock icons here. So if I say don't want to have this menu set button locked, I can basically unlock it and I'm good to go. So you can fully reset it by using the Q button over here as well, but it's just a really handy tool. If you want to make sure you're not knocking any of your settings, you can use the lever on this side and set it up accordingly. From the monitor display photo options over here, you can see that I've got the photo grid line on. And even though I'm in video mode right now, you can still see the rule of thirds. This is something that I've really come to appreciate for any time I'm setting up a shot. It really helps you frame your shot properly. So if you want to turn it on, you can. There's also a few different variations of this as well, but this is the standard one and I really like it. Night mode allows you to change the color of the monitor or live viewfinder to red, kind of like a Game Boy Advance from back in the day, and this just helps cut down on light spill if you're doing something where you don't want any light affecting your shot. Level gauge is an essential for me, both in the studio and out in the field, and this gives us this green line that comes up on screen. So now as I tilt the camera, you can see that it goes yellow, meaning that I'm not quite horizontal, and if I've got the camera flat or it's perfectly set up, then it will be green. If I tilt it this way, you can see another set of lines pop up here, and as I tilt it up as well, you can see that I'm clearly not straight. As I bring everything back to flat, the green lines align. If you like to shoot in Vlog without any real-time LUT options, then you can go into Log View Assist here. And this allows you to turn this feature on, so you'll be able to shoot in Vlog while still seeing a Rec 709 color profile. This gives you a little bit more color to actually preview the image with, which is really handy. If you're an anamorphic shooter, turn on anamorphic desqueeze display from off to on, and you've got all of these different options, including 1.3, 1.33, 1.5, 1.8, and 2.0 times. Center mark is another really handy tool, and you can select from a number of different sizes. I usually leave it set to this one right here, and you can see the little plus right in the dead center screen. Now, this is a pre-release camera, and there is an upcoming firmware that will give us more framing marker indicators. So as of right now, we can only set one framing marker, and I'll show you how it works. So if I'm shooting in open gate, which I am right now, you can see that I've got a vertical aspect ratio overlay on screen. Now I can turn this on and off just by using the D-pad here. and I've mapped this button. So to map this in the same way, all you need to do is hold this down. It will bring up this option, and you can find framing marker on or off from option number 2 and monitor display number 1. Now, if we go back into the framing marker option, we can set up any type of frame we like, and we can fully customize it as well. So say, for example, we might be shooting with this aspect ratio. I can change the color of the frame. We'll make it green, and we'll change this to 100%, and there you go. So you can see that I just changed it that simply. Coming up on the next firmware update, you'll be able to use up to 3 framing markers like you can with the LUMIX S9. The zebra pattern or zebra pattern can be found here if you like to turn those on. There's actually 2 that you can enable at the same time, or just single ones individually. Through this menu, we've got false color. Now, there's an index here which lets you know exactly what's going on. If you're exposing for middle gray, it should be green. So if we take a look at the scene here, if I hit start, you can see that the green option means that that part of the image is exposed properly. And then if I was to bring up the ISO, the red means I'm overexposed. So you can use this as an exposure tool. It's really handy. The waveform readout is a really handy tool for nailing exposure as well. I would usually leave this on if I'm outside shooting, for example. So you can turn it on from this menu. We also get Vectorscopes, which is great for trying to nail skin tones, or we can turn them off. I've actually, again, mapped it to the D-pad. I think it's down. Yeah, that's right. So I've got it on the down button. We can move this around, resize it, all that kind of stuff. It's just a really handy way of making sure your exposure is correct, unlike some of this video. Another tool I can't live without on these cameras is the red record frame indicator. So I've turned this on already. So if I hit record on the camera, you're going to see a big red box come up on screen. This is something that I wish was on by default, but it has something to do with the SEPA ratings. But turn this on if you're a video shooter. It's just another way to make sure, or to ensure, that you are recording. If you plan on buying this camera for IRL live streaming, you can turn on a blue framing indicator, which basically replaces the red recording one with a blue one, letting you know that you're up and live. If you're looking for a clean HDMI output, maybe you might be live streaming through an A10 Mini or something similar, then you can turn HDMI record output to off, and it will get rid of all the information being displayed to your audience. This is a no-brainer if you plan on working that way or recording via a live switcher. This camera has a bunch of different fan modes. By default, it's set to number 2, which is usually fine, but I found in hotter climates, it's best to set this to auto 1. Get tally lamp options, so you can go through and change what the tally lights do. We have 3 options: high, low, and off. So say, for example, I'm shooting against a reflective surface, which is what I did in my review at night. Then you're not going to see the red light bouncing back into the lens. So you can turn it to low or off, and you can do the same with the rear and rear card access light. Another great feature, and something I always turn on these LUMIX cameras, is the lens focus resume. I always set this to on. It means if I'm shooting in manual focus in the studio, I might turn the camera off. When I turn it back on, the focus point is going to be in exactly the same spot. It's a really cool feature. For those who like to shoot with manual focus, I highly recommend turning this feature on. It's called Focus Ring Settings during manual focus. Now, if we go in here, we can set it to linear from non-linear, and then we can go in and set how far we actually need to turn it. I've got mine set to 240 degrees. I mean, you're welcome to start there, but you can set it anywhere from 90 all the way through to 720 degrees. So for 720 degrees, it means we have to turn it a lot more than we would if we've got it set to 90. I find the sweet spot, at least for my hands, somewhere around 240 degrees. You can format any card attached to the camera by using the wrench icon and then going to card format. This is the same for USB SSD. So if you're running an external SSD drive, you would have this set to on, but to format it, you would go back to this menu. The double card slot function allows the camera to back up and record in different ways. So the first way is relay recording, which fills up one card and then goes to the next. You can also use backup recording, where it just duplicates things to both card slots, providing it's a mode which can record to both card slots. And then there's also allocation recording, which allows you to send photos and videos to separate media cards. To change the priority of which media card gets used, you can change it from 1 to 2 or 2 to 1. Now, the CF Express B card is slot number 1, and the SD card is slot number 2. Now let's go through the monitor display options here. So we've got our power save mode. You can decide when you want the camera to go to sleep. We have our thermal management option here, and it's currently set to high. Now, by default, this will be set to standard. I highly encourage you, pun intended, to switch it to high. The monitor reframe rate options allow you to set the refresh rate for the back screen here. So it's currently set to 30 FPS. You can change it to 60. And the live viewfinder or electronic viewfinder can be set to either 60 or 120 frames per second. Our monitor settings allow you to change the brightness, contrast, and all those kind of settings, but I never feel the need to do that. But we can change the monitor backlight from auto to +2. And if you're shooting outside, +3 is still plenty bright. It's really impressive how bright this is, but +2s are pretty good sort of brightness for most sort of situations. If you'd like to connect to Lumix Lab or Lumix Flow, you need to turn Bluetooth on from this menu right here. You can just simply hit this to smartphone. The pairing process will begin as soon as you hit on smartphone, open up the app, and it will see the camera, and then you connect basically seamlessly. The frame I/O settings are here. If you'd like to connect, you can turn this feature on and set up your connection. To use this camera as a webcam, first go into the USB settings here and select your webcam image quality. Now, I would set this to Full HD at 50 frames per second or Full HD at 60 if you've got your camera set to NTSC. The 4K, yes, it's going to drop frames. It actually doesn't look too bad. I covered this in my review because you're still streaming at double this frame rate essentially, but yeah, it's odd to see these frame rates in a camera that's designed to be used as a webcam because they're nearly all set to 30 and 60 frames when it comes to streaming services. But yeah, if you're stuck using the PAL options, set it to 50p for the best results. One of the cool things about this camera is you can easily save custom settings in video and photo, and they're all completely separated thanks to the top dial on the left. So if you're in photographic mode, all of the custom settings that you save by going through this menu will be separate from the photo mode. So right now you can see all the video modes I've got set up. If I switch it back to the camera mode and go back in here, you can see that I've got separate photo modes, and same with S&Q, so it's really powerful. To set this up, all you need to do is set the camera up in either photo, video, and S&Q mode, and then go back to this menu, irrespective of photo or video mode, and save to custom mode photo if you're in photo mode, or of course, save to photo mode if you're in video mode over here. And you can save up to 5 using the command dial and plenty of others thanks to these custom modes down the bottom. If you want to adjust the time on the camera, you can go in here and also adjust the style so you can display it in a way that works for wherever you live. Then if you go back to the time zone, you can see that I've got it set up for Houston, Texas, which is where I received this camera, where I still got to give it back, but that's where it was on loan from. And now I'm currently in the Melbourne, Sydney time zone over here. So yeah, set it up correctly the first time, but if you do travel or you need to adjust the clock, you can do it this way to save you messing around with all the settings. The system frequency allows you to change between 3 modes: PAL, which is the 50 Hz, NTSC, which is 60 Hz, and True 24 Hz. So if you're shooting a feature film, 24 Hz would be the way to go. But if you're in Australia, then I would choose 50 Hz because that will match the light flicker, and same with North America. Your best setting is NTSC. If you notice what looks to be a hot pixel, you can run pixel refresh, which is awesome. Shutter behavior at power off is currently set to open, but I can set this to close. So when I turn the camera off, the mechanical shutter is actually going to close over the sensor, which is great. If you do need to clean the sensor, there's a sensor cleaning option. The camera will shake around for a few seconds and then you'll need to restart it. It's a really handy feature. You can change the languages here from all of these different options. There's 2 pages of options there. And if you want to update the firmware or see what version you're on, then you can see that it says version 1.0 and the lens firmware is also 1.0. To update the firmware, you need to download it from a website link that I'll put in the description, and then you can insert the card and then update it from this menu option here. I've just changed the camera to photo mode while we take a look through the menu system. So to change the photo style here, we can go into this option. We have all the same options that we saw in video mode. And a quick way to do this is to hit the Q button, go up to the top here and use the back wheel to cycle through the color profile. So nice and simple. We have the same metering mode here as well that we saw in the video option. I'm not going to cover that twice. You can go back and watch that if you so choose. But we have an aspect ratio option here, which allows us to change from 4:3, 3:2, 16, by 9, and 1:1. Through this format photo option, we've got JPEG, RAW and JPEG, and RAW. You can also now change from JPEG to HEIF thanks to this menu system. And this allows you to take photos in the new, more compressed file format that will save space long term, which I think is really great. You go into the JPEG picture quality here, and you can change this from fine to standard. I would just leave this set to fine. If you want to shoot with HDR, you can turn it on here. The picture size can also be adjusted. We've got it set by default to 24 megapixels. We can change it to 12, 6, and 2.5. Now, if you're using crop or hybrid zoom, you can set this to either 12 or 6 and still get pretty decent results, but 2.5 is best reserved for sites like eBay, for example. To turn on handheld high resolution mode, you need to go into this setting here, and you can change the size if you choose from 96 megapixels to 48. You can change the shutter delay, and this is how long it takes before the photo or high resolution photo is taken after you push the button. It's set to 2 seconds by default. I much prefer it at 1. Get all the same autofocus detection and autofocus options that we saw before. There's also all of our flash options down here as well. Now, I don't shoot with flash, so I'm not going to pretend I know what any of this is. But if you're a flash shooter, your options can be found through this menu system. Now, if you want to turn on crop zoom or hybrid zoom for photography, you can turn it on from this option right here under Photo 1. You can also change the burst shot settings here as well. So this gives you the high burst shot settings. There's also SH Pre, which performs super high speed pre-burst recordings with the electronic shutter, which is cool. So I'm going to leave it on that. And then as we go down here, we can change our recording time. Now I've got it set to 1 second, but you can go all the way back to 1.5 seconds before you take the photo, which I don't know how they do this. They've got some sort of weird time machine system. Time-lapse animation can be found here, and there's also some different self-timer modes. There's 10 seconds with 3 photos, 2 seconds, or a custom setting that you set for yourself, which can be found under here. So we've got anywhere between 2 seconds all the way up to 10. You can also make your own menu, and I've already added one of these to the top, which is card format. It's just a nice, easy way of finding it. You don't need to go through all of the menu options. So if I want to add something else to that menu, all I need to do is go down to here, click add, and then I want to go down to, let's just add this one if you're a photographer, for example. I can go back, and then from this top menu here, there it is. So when I go into photo mode on the top of the camera, go back into the menu option, I can change from JPEG to HEIF. This menu is fully customizable, so whether you're shooting photos or video, you can set it up in a way that works for your shooting style. So there you have it. I hope this video has been helpful. If you can, leave a thumbs up, subscribe, click the bell for more videos. I have plenty of other tutorials on my channel already, but if you're thinking about buying this camera, or if you've already got it, congrats. It's a beast of a mirrorless camera. It's been a lot of fun to use. As much as I don't want to give it back, I'm going to have to, unfortunately. But you may see one pop up on the channel in the future. So thanks again for watching. Catch you soon. See ya.